I'd like to call our May 17th meeting of the Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board to order. The agenda pretty much, I believe, is going to stand as posted, although we're going to have a number of continuations. And that's probably par for the course. Could I hear a motion to approve acceptance of Jim's meeting notes for tonight's meeting?
So moved, Melody.
Second, Kathy.
Second. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Melody. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Could I hear a motion to approve the May 3rd minutes, meeting minutes?
So move. Kathy.
Second, Melody.
Thank you, Melody. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Just another notice about the required discrimination, harassment, and other meetings or other webinars, Zoom meetings we're supposed to all take annually. I believe the next one on harassment and discrimination, I believe is next month in June. I think they have one a month. I don't know how much longer they're going to be continuing these. I don't know what their full schedule is. And the other things, there's a whole series of options for May and for June for those. But all members of the town government, volunteers, boards, everything like that, we're all required annually to take these. I found out that the one wasn't that painful. I could just sort of lie back and it sort of just played. So you'll get your certificate, and by law, we're required to do all this. I guess there's some state regulations annually we're required. So do make sure you do this before time runs out on us. We have a few minutes. I think we have, what do we have? We have one zoning administrator referral, Southlands. I believe it is for, they
Actually, I
wish
have
to put a
two, Mike.
gazebo on the property. Make sure gazebo is not withdrawn, we do the gazebo within large property. Okay. Okay. Kathy, are you familiar with this at all?
Yes, it's been referred to the committee, to HAPAC.
Okay. Okay, so you'll be getting back to us on that.
Yes, we will.
Okay, very good. And we have another one, Eric Fixler, proposing to replace an existing deck in kind and remove a second deck and associated entrance and replace the existing entrance with a window. Interior work to add a wall door to an existing bathroom also proposed. Based on the existing conditions and the proposed work, we recommend that the planning board request an expedited review from HAPAC. A draft referral follows below. Has this one been on your radar yet, Kathy?
No, it is not.
Okay. Well, I guess we can put it there for you. I have
Thank
a
you.
resolution. The Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board, upon referral from the zoning administrator of a building permit submitted by Eric Fixler, hereby refers the application to HAPAC for expedited review and submission of a finding and written comments, if any, to the zoning administrator and planning board secretary. Could I hear a motion to approve?
So moved, Elise.
Thank you,
Second,
Denise.
Sean.
Second. Thank you, Sean. Any comment or discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. It looks like we are in time for our first public hearing. This will be Rudy McIntyre, 16 Valley Way Road, site plan, a proposed garage. Is the applicant or the applicant's representative here? Anyone here to speak to this application? Jim, nobody?
Sorry, I was muted. I'm not sure. I don't see anyone turning on their mic. I don't see anyone turning on their mic, Michael.
Okay, well. We have a few other ZBA referrals. We could perhaps do one of those. The first one is Joel Herm. I believe this is related to his hydro plan. Okay.
Yes, it is.
Application. The zoning administrator found that the proposal for the micro hydro turbine, the proposal requires a 15-foot variance for the panel box and a 45-foot variance for the micro hydro turbine, based on their review. Okay. I think we all went through Joel Herm's application. Basically, what this says is that part of what he has is actually on the neighboring property, but they have an easement for it. But apparently an easement does not negate the setback requirement, if I'm understanding this correctly.
Correct.
Therefore, in order for him to continue with this project, to get our approval to install the micro hydro turbine, he requires two variances from the ZBA, and I believe he has applied to the ZBA for them. So what I have here is a resolution of the Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board upon referral by the zoning administrator of an application by Joel Herm for setback variances for the panel box and micro hydro turbine locations at 433 Mill Road in the RA 10 zoning district. One, finds that the requested variances raise no significant planning or environmental concerns. And two, recommends that the ZBA rely upon its own study of the facts in deciding the application in accordance with the criteria and procedures set forth in Town Code, Chapter 120, Section 120.67, and Chapter 125, Sections 125.76 and 125.67, including consideration of the input of neighboring property owners. Could I hear a motion to approve?
So moved, Melody.
Second?
Second, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. Any discussion on this one? Okay, hearing none, could all in favor, please say aye? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we will pass that on. Are we at, my clock's not working. Are we at 6:40 yet, Jim?
Wait. Are you planning to go back to the McIntyre application in a minute, Michael?
If he's, we'll try that first if he's here, and if he's not here, then we'll move on to the next one at 6:40. If there's no one here.
So is there anyone here representing Rudy McIntyre? Please unmute your line if you are.
Apparently not.
Not seeing anyone unmute the line, no.
Okay, thank you. Well, then why don't we move on to our next public hearing? Michelle Moyer, 30 Hiley Road, site plan and special use permit, ground mounted solar. Is the applicant or the applicant's representative here?
Yes. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Mealy. I am the engineer for the applicant. We're here tonight for the public hearing for a 25.2 kW ground mount array, broken up into two separate arrays of 35 panels each. The reason we did that was to be able to meet zoning compliance with our side yard setback. We recently had a site visit at the earlier part of the week where we met some representatives of the board. We kind of went over where everything was. Since then, some of the questions came out about visibility. Since that meeting, myself and the homeowner, we went out and we put some balloons up and took some pictures just to kind of give a general idea of kind of the height of how the ground mount would be pre-screening. It definitely seemed from the meeting that we had that screening is the issue. The good news is that based on how the topo kind of slopes down away from the shared driveway, that seriously helps in doing its own natural screening. We had proposed on our original plan some trees along the shared driveway. In meeting with the members of the planning board and the advisory committee, we spoke about other trees kind of on maybe the northern side to kind of view a little bit coming to the cul-de-sac. So we would like to get everyone's input. We don't have any issue with supplying trees and screening as necessary. We understand what we're trying to put in here, and we recommend any comment or consideration. But the original plan that had, I think it was 10 or 12 shade trees, we were going to be increasing that, and then also putting them, if you're looking at this plan, kind of where you see the north 81-degree bearing between that line and heading down towards the cul-de-sac. So anybody kind of coming down the cul-de-sac, kind of looking up through that brush would also be screened there. So we welcome any comments, concerns, and any questions that I could answer.
Okay, thank you. Kathy, you and Edna did the site visit?
We did. And Mike, did you provide, I thought you were going to do some images with the balloons in place to indicate height and location and so forth. Did you bring any of those with you tonight?
I submitted them. I can try to find them. If I tried to screen share, that might just take me a minute. I did submit on Friday.
Okay.
I have those, Kathy. I can bring them up.
So I think that might be helpful to the board to see, as well as if there are any other interested parties. Edna and I both did the site visit, and she submitted kind of her written opinion because she cannot be here tonight. And just to summarize, generally speaking, there is a sense that the location can be screened from both the road, the shared driveway or neighboring properties, but that it would require, at least in our opinion, both deciduous trees and evergreen trees and maybe some thick growing shrubs. And Edna, I think in particular, if I remember this right, Mike, suggested that the owner and applicant employ the services of a landscape designer that would also help to, create attractive screening, not just rows of trees.
Correct. And the owner was present when we had the meeting, and he was on board with creating something that wasn't just exactly as you said, just a row of trees, but something a little bit more natural and kind of pleasant to look at. So yeah, that's that's definitely okay, and will be provided.
And could you go through the images with the balloon indications so that perhaps people would understand what you were trying to show?
Sure. If we just want to go one at a time, the view we're looking at now is pretty much standing at the edge of the shared driveway. And if you can see the pickup truck in the back, that's in the applicant's driveway. So the first balloon represents the lower part. Actually, the two balloons represent the lower part and the higher part of the array. And as you can kind of see from the topo, it's a little hard at the angle, but both elevations are below the elevation of the road. So kind of what we were saying, that the screening in conjunction with the change of grade should really almost make this not visible as you come down. So we tried to set the balloon elevations at pretty much the minimum and the maximum height that the arrays would be, just so you could see what it would look like pre-screened. So this would be pretty much, like I said, right at the edge of the driveway, looking down towards the applicant's property. If we can just go to the next picture, please. Kind of a similar view, a little bit farther down towards the cul-de-sac of the balloons. As you can see, again, looking down, it's both top and bottom will be below the elevation of the shared driveway. I think there's two more. This is kind of almost towards the cul-de-sac, looking up before you get to the little brush path, and a little bit of wind, but you could, if you kind of took the string of the balloon and held it straight up, that's kind of where the heights would be. And this is actually a perfect angle of what we were speaking about at the site inspection, is that instead of, or in addition to the screening that we're going to have on the shared driveway, of also including screening along this portion, which would be visible potentially from the cul-de-sac. And then I think there was one more. And this is actually looking at the exact entrance of the shared driveway. And you can see pretty much dead straight ahead is where there are some trees. The array would be a little bit to the left in the grassy area there. So from this exact angle, there probably wouldn't be much visibility, but as you kind of go back on Hiley Drive from a distance, there might be potential views from the kind of to the right of where we are, which the angle I showed you before is the shading that we're trying to create to screen that. So pretty much in essence, the owner were willing to provide whatever screening and trees are necessary, but we more wanted to just show that the topo in conjunction with the screening should really make it almost non-existent to the neighbors.
Were any pictures taken from any of the neighbors' properties, excuse me, looking down at the site for the solar array?
We had some preliminary ones. I don't believe we have any with the balloons. As part of the initial submission, I had a map that had a bunch of different letters that corresponded to the different angles that you kind of see the property from. But we did not get any with the balloons before the meeting.
Okay. Kathy, anything else that you wanted to share?
No, that was basically it, mostly that I think Edna in particular felt strongly that with appropriate types of trees, shrubs, and evergreens, in addition, that it probably would be possible to screen this array from neighbors and from the approach.
Okay. Do we have a representative of the CAB to give their report this evening? I know they submitted a written report. Okay, any questions, comments from members of the planning board for the applicant's representative at this time? Okay, Jim, should we open it up to the public for public comment, public questions?
Yep, absolutely. We can do that. I think there are a couple people on here that may want to speak. If you could just let me know in the chat box, just let me know you'd like to speak. We will go through this in orderly fashion. Just let us know your name and where you live. And you can open up your mic.
And I'd just like to add, we would like to ask people, try to keep your comments to around maybe 3-4 minutes. If you find you have further things you wish to say, then you can certainly speak up again. But we sort of would like to try to make sure that everyone can speak, and that at the same time, we just don't keep going over the same things over and over again. I'm sure there are issues here, and we want to make sure we identify them so we can address them, particularly in terms of the screening.
Okay, Michael, looks like the first person in the chat box was Lisa Haggerty. If you'd like to unmute your line.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Good
So
evening.
I live, I'm not good with east, west, north, and south, but if you're looking at the road, I live to the left of the Moyer household. We live up on a hill. Burger Hill is directly behind us. I can tell you that during the winter, and when the leaves fall off of the trees, that the balloons that you see there, if you look and hit Mr. Mealy's second picture, you can see that our fence that separates the 30 Hiley from 28 Hiley, you can see our fence. So if you then look at the elevation of our house, which is fairly up there because it's right on the downside of Burger Hill, we would clearly be able to see the balloons in the non-foliage months. I think that one of the things that needs to be kind of addressed is the deed restrictions that we have in our neighborhood. One of which was written, as you see in the information that I sent you, that there would be no large satellite dishes. If the deed of restrictions were be written today, they certainly would have written that we would not have ground solar. We own 2 parcels of land in the neighborhood. The second parcel is to the right of me if you're sitting in our house. Clearly, if a house were to be built there, it would be seen during the off seasons. And finally, we ourselves considered putting solar on our land, but realize that that's not really the look of the neighborhood. It's not really the way that the neighborhood was kind of established to be, the rolling hills. And I'm not sure if Mr. Mealy has access to the letter that I wrote you. Does he?
Yes. I've seen it.
Yes. Okay. You know, as I said, I went through great pains building this house because they didn't want it to ruin the look of Burger Hill Park. There is clearly no doubt that solar panels in our neighborhood, ground solar panels, put them on your roof, I don't care. Ground solar panels will ruin the look of the neighborhood, potentially property values. And it was never the intent of the neighborhood to have structures such as that in our neighborhood. And I'm 100% opposed to this being placed in my next door neighbor's yard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, next, Frank Santa Marina, if you could unmute your line and just let us know your name and your address for the record.
Sure, Frank Santa Marina, 15 Highly Road. I oppose this project 100%. Mr. Mealy used very choice words when he said almost non-existent, and I quote, Mr. Mealy said almost, which means they're existent, which means we're going to see them, which means it's going to be an eyesore to the neighborhood, especially when we're walking up and down Highly Road in this cul-de-sac, and so many families, including my own, do. I completely agree with the intent of the neighborhood. The deed restrictions were there so these homes would be protected from structures similar to this. This isn't the only type of structure that isn't allowed in the neighborhood. You can't have campers, you can't have RVs. There's many things that you cannot have here. And just knowing that you could not hide this structure 100% from the neighbors and also from the people up on Burger Hill looking down. I mean, those people up there are going to have this elevation. They're going to be looking and boom, they're going to see this array of discs, array of solar panels. So I completely oppose it. I'm not opposed to solar. I like green. This doesn't belong in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Scott Hutchins. Just say your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, this is Scott Hutchins. So I live at 29 Highly Road. I also, my wife and I have a lot, a 4-acre lot behind 25 Highly Road on top of the hill. We have the shared driveway. We're one of the 2 families that have the shared driveway. And I think our lots are probably the highest lots within the development. These particular solar panels will be seen from Highly Road. They'll be seen throughout almost the entire line of our driveway, which is some 700 to 800 feet long. I just don't believe that these belong in this neighborhood. This is a rolling pasture. They're an eyesore. They will be an eyesore. And I think that from anywhere on our property, we are going to be able to see them. I don't know if screening of your neighbors is limited to one's driveway, but we drive down towards these. The pictures that were taken by Mr. Mealy and presented with the balloons were conveniently around the corner in a different area from where we drive down. I'm totally opposed to it. I think it's absolutely wrong. I don't think they belong in our neighborhood. This is not a wooded lot. This is a rolling pasture development. And we're opposed to it. I do want to just ask and confirm that the board has received a collaborative document from myself, Frank, and Steve Lawrence.
Yes, we have.
Okay, that says really what we feel. And I think there's some pictures in there that do a little better job of speaking to this than the pictures that Mr. Mealy has shown us tonight.
Okay.
That's all for me.
All right, Mark or Lisa Shardock, if you'd like to just announce your name and your address, please.
Hi, thank you. This is Mark Chodok. Myself, my wife Lisa, and our 3-year-old Mia all live at 25 Hiley Road. If you take a look, we are just to we're the house in the north on this photo, and we also strongly oppose. I think there's a couple things. One is, I don't think, right. We recently moved into the neighborhood. We really loved the look and feel of it, which did not include, ground solar, satellite dishes, all that sort of thing. And, as when we first heard about this, one of the things that I think struck me is just the size of them. And, I think the balloon demonstration is a little deceitful because those balloons are, 1/100th, 1/1000th of the size of those panel arrays. Those are massive. And, I don't think you get the feel of it by just looking at a few balloons, white balloons, popping around in a field. If you go, if you wouldn't mind going back to I think the third photo of the balloons. That one, sorry. The one just before. Yep. So that is an unobstructed view. And we actually have, we're a bit above an elevation from that. There's no covering. If you try to put covering into it, it's going to take 5, 10, 15 years for the new trees that you're going to plant there to have any sort of covering over that. And that's the area of our lawn that we enjoy, is looking over that. And I think the other thing to me is, if you go back to the original photo of the layout, what I don't appreciate is that our neighbor decided to pick a place, and I believe it's mentioned in the letter, decided to pick a place in their parcel. And if you could point out on the colored area of the map, the parcel, you'll see that there's a huge tree line in between their home. Whereas if you look at our home to the north, we have a dead-on view of it. So they're hiding themselves from it because they don't want to see it, but yet they feel it's completely fine for the rest of us to have to stare at it. If they wanted to be, genuine about it, why don't they put it next to their house? So, look, we're new to the neighborhood. Last thing I wanted to do was to really speak up on this. But this just really leaves a bad taste in my mouth that, a year in and this is kind of happening. So anyways, just wanted to share.
Yes, and I second that strong opposition. This is his wife. I just feel like this neighborhood is a very old neighborhood. People and families have been living here for 20 years, and we want to be respectful of our neighbors and to show that all the neighbors in the neighborhood, I understand Kathy and the board have looked at it, but if all the neighbors in the neighborhood are banding together and saying, we don't want this here because it's harming our property value, it's harming what we're seeing, it's harming the people who enjoy Burger Hill, I think that statement should be, because we're all together on this, that's something we don't want in our neighborhood. And there isn't availability to really cover this, you know, for probably 10 years. With the tree line, and even often, particularly off season, like you won't be able to cover this. There's absolutely no guarantee, and not even guarantee. It's not a possibility to protect your neighbors from this. So we strongly oppose.
Thank you.
And Michael, it appears we have one more person who'd like to speak, Stephen or Julia Lawrence. If you could just announce your name and address for the record.
Hi, Stephen Lawrence, 31 Hiley Road. I'm on the shared driveway going up alongside of the proposed solar panels. And I am opposed to it also, unfortunately, just because I feel that A, I'm going to see it driving up along the driveway. And B, I think it's going to stand out from Burger Hill. When people are hiking there in the fall and winter, I know you can see our houses, you know, in the fall and winter, so it's going to be there. And, you know, green energy is a great thing, but to have solar panels in everybody's yard on Hiley Road, I think would be a bad thing for property values, a bad thing for the look of the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Michael, looks like we have one more, Dan Coscarella. Let's say your name and address for the record.
Hi, this is Dan Coscarella of 30 Hiley Road. Please speak to the board on our behalf here. To speak to the ends of some of the questions that were posed, none of this was done with deceit or ill intentions. The town board themselves requested we place those balloons. We did it as a service. By no means is there any intent to deceive anybody, cause any deceit. The reason it's not placed on the other corner of the yard is that that's considered the front of our yard by the town and by the home, so that isn't in available space. As we spoke to the planning board, we were committed to screening this property, which where the solar is set is down below grade. So as you'll see in the balloon photos, shorter shrubs would cover that, and we're committed to placing large trees in large quantity. As Mike had drawn up originally, we're talking about 12 trees. I believe we're looking towards 2025. We are not in an attempt to deceive anybody. If you know the neighborhood, you know there's a giant concrete structure at the end of the street. I realize that that was placed there when it was placed, but that is precedence in the neighborhood. That does exist. From Burger Hill, as someone who has hiked it and does hike it, I can tell you that the likelihood of being able to see that, and I know I cannot guarantee that, is slim. That we've also committed to putting some shrubbery trees in front of the solar, as well as the land between our home and those solar arrays. The trees would have to be come down and replanted with shorter trees. So with all that, I hope everyone understands there is no intent to deceive. In fact, I reached out to the two neighbors I could get a hold of to give them a heads up prior to the sign being planted on our property. The roof itself doesn't allot for much of a solar system because of the direction of the house, and it's a hip roof. It's not a cable end. There's many reasons that solar makes sense. And yes, it may be something that people feel is a structure that would be similar to a dish, but that's not in the law currently. And additionally, we are looking to look forward in this country, just like everybody else, where in 2030, GM, Volkswagen are both committed to 100% electric vehicles. And as well as I believe New York State's looking at 2035. So I do apologize if we're forward thinking in advance of something, but I think it's wise planning. And I think our commitment to doing it with the best interest of the community, our neighbors, and our own beautiful property. We didn't move here to have an eyesore. We will do everything in our power to make it clean, make it respectful, and make sure that any line of sights are taken care of. The intent is to do that first attempt. I don't plan on going back and planting more. But if anybody here has ever worked with me in business, which I don't know if any have, they would understand that I'm a man of my word, candor, openness, and honesty. And you would see that in this, which is reasonably a homeowner doing a business dealing. But thank you. I don't know if you have any questions, but I am here for you.
Okay, thank you.
Michael, Lisa Haggerty has additional comment, I believe.
Okay.
Lisa, if you want to unmute your line.
There, yeah, sorry. With respect to I'm not sure of our neighbor's name that lives at 30 Highway because I've never met him. But with respect to his comments about the deed restrictions, so those were written in the 1980s, right? So similar to, the Constitution of the United States, we can't always look at, there's no way that anyone knew in the 1700s what was going to be happening now, right? So there's no way in the 1980s that anyone knew that there were going to be ground solar panels. So we have to look at intent. The intent for not wanting huge satellite dishes was the intent of ruining the rolling hills and the nature of the actual neighborhood. So if we're looking at intent of what was written way back when, the intent would be no way to the ground solar panels. So that would be my first thing that I would like to say. But I would also like to say that, I certainly understand the idea of solar as being forward thinking. Our house was built in 1994-ish. We didn't make a roof line that would have worked well with solar. We wish we had, but we didn't. So instead what we did is we did what we could and we added solar hot, water. So we do have solar. So, but it's on a roof. Nobody sees it. It's ours. These homes were just not built back then to actually be forward thinking, except for what used to be the Wings house that has the geothermal, thank God for that. But I think that we have to, if we're going to take these deed restrictions and we're going to throw them out the window by putting in ground solar, then I think it's a slippery slope. And there's nothing that says that I couldn't put solar in my backyard for my neighbors to see. It's a really big slippery slope. And as far as the remark of the water tower, which is, everyone knows is unsightly. You bought your land, you bought your house, knowing that was there. The neighbors here that own their house, who bought their house, had no idea that you were going to be putting up a ground solar. That was not there. So when they went into a legal agreement to purchase their home, it was what we saw. It was not that there would be a aberrancy of the deed restrictions by putting these this massive solar system in. So I think that we have to look intent, and I think that the town board, the planning board, with all due respect, if we can't respect the restrictions that we have in the neighborhood, it's not a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Michael, number of people would like to comment again. I just ask, make sure the comments, if they're coming through, are new comments, please, so we can keep the meeting moving along. And just announce your name and let us know who you are. Scott, would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, hi, Scott Hutchins again. I just want to, I understand and the applicant's, decision here, but we wouldn't, if we were to do this on our property, again, we have probably the highest elevation in the neighborhood. I think I could screen this better than anybody from other people's view, but I'm never going to screen it from Burger Hill. And I don't think he's going to be able to screen his from Burger Hill. And if Lisa decided that in her vacant lot that maybe some solar would go in there, that would be not screened from Burger Hill. I think we simply need to go back and just remember what rural countryside RC5 is and what it's defined as, what the code suggests in terms of trying to keep the 125/47 and what it tries to do, and just what the train subdivision was designed for back in 1987, 1988. I think if we look at those things, it'll be easy for us to determine that this is not the type of structure that we want in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Mark Chodak, you have another comment you'd like to make?
Yeah, just real quickly. I mean, I know that the point is trying to be made that, it's going to be screened. But what if it's not? I mean, people our neighbor did not come over to us to talk to us about this, to see the vantage view from our home that's directly onto his. So I don't think he's aware exactly, even though it's sunken down, the blaring view that we have of it, and nor did the planning board. So what if it's not, it sounds like everything is trying to be done so that it can be, but what if it's not? What rights do we have? It's partially a question, because it sounds like everything here is saying, okay, the assumption is it would be screened, but what if it's not? So
just to be able to echo my husband's comments on this. So I will actually make a new comment because I know we don't want to echo. I think solar is fantastic. I do think forward thinking progress on energy efficiency is great, but I also think that perhaps Mike or the design team here hasn't thought this through, because to submit originally 12 trees to cover this doesn't seem accurate at all, right? So if you're saying I'm going to do my best job to help my neighbors, and your initial design is 12 trees, even at 25 trees, it's not going to be covered. So I think the design team, the people who want to do this, have to be realistic of what's actually achievable here. And once again, like, I don't think they're being deceitful. I just think they're not being informed of what this would take for coverage. And there's no guarantee that coverage will actually be made. Actually, most likely still coverage will not be made for the neighbors or Burger Hill. And I don't think best intent for a large project like that is good enough for neighbors, for a lot of people who've been here for 20 years.
Thank you.
All right. Another comment from Frank.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm at 15 Hiley Road and I live next to the water tower. And the water tower isn't precedent as the homeowner suggested. We bought 15 Hiley Road knowing the water tower was there and went into our pockets. The town was supposed to plant trees around the entire perimeter of the fence. You can see it on the planning of the approval for the site plan, but the town never did that. And I'm still asking for the town to do that. That was 400 trees. I planted 60. I planted 60 trees, my wife and I. And after 16 years, and they were 10-foot trees when I planted them, so it wasn't cheap. 60 of them. You can still see the tower. You can still see the water tower. And that was 16 years ago with 60 trees. So I understand where he's coming from. I understand his argument. But don't look at the argument, look at what's actually here with the trees that I planted. And even though my neighbors don't have to look at the entire tower when they're driving out of the neighborhood, because I've bordered it, you can still see it through the trees. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, looks like one last comment from Dan.
I just want to thank everybody. I know you're trying to be reasonably amicable through this process and considerate. And I know that a neighbor placing any kind of structure in your community, longstanding or not, or new, is always going to be met with trepidation and fear. And I do apologize for putting anyone on their heels. That is certainly not my intent here. And my reference of the water tower isn't to say that that structure is precedent in far as quality of works or what we'd be putting forward, but as far as standing in the neighborhood, and as noted, it was here when you moved in. And I'm not saying that's a reason for us to put up a horrible structure of any sort. The water tower itself is on a scale of multiple tiers times what we're talking about here. It doesn't make it a better or worse case for us. I understand the fear or hesitation with the quantity of trees. We're under the impression that we can do a good job hiring professionals and are committed to doing so. we're not looking to make this a difficulty or an eyesore in everybody's day. I don't believe that the Burger Hill reference is as fair as the neighbor's own individual concerns, which we are more than aware of. And, like I said prior, that we had the utmost intentions of putting as much screening as possible. And that when I mentioned, getting it right the first time, it doesn't mean that there's not commitment to following up more. I mean, we have to see each other at the grocery stores as we walk down the street, and there's no lingering angst on my side, no matter how this goes. But I do think this is a wise decision to support on behalf of the town and our own individual use here. And I just want everybody to know that I do appreciate their time and that I appreciate their open honesty in their comments, and it's all worth hearing. And, I hope to see you around the neighborhood and that we can continue to move forward. You have a good night.
Thank you.
Could I make one more comment just before we wrap up?
Yes.
Just going back to the original comments when we were out at our site visit, and that we were talking about having a professional landscape architect come in and talk about screening and come up with a design with multiple facets of trees. I think maybe that should be the direction we're going, because I do understand the neighbors and their concern, and can it maybe be screened? And I think one had mentioned that I'd said almost screened. I believe I was referring to the visibility prior to screening. But I think if we get a professional on board who can specify placement and type of trees, location and views, I think we could answer and hopefully put to bed any of the concerns that the neighbors would have. The idea that we can't plant trees big enough at the inception, I don't know if that's accurate. I think that could also fall back to the professional to go on that. And just a couple things. I did look at the memo from the neighbors, and I do agree about the deed restrictions. It's not in the deed restriction. I actually think it's a little bit more of a slippery slope to just start assuming what deed restrictions should be put in. And also that they talked about in the zoning code that this is wasn't what was thought of for the zoning code, but according to the zoning code, this is allowed subject to review by the planning board. So they did, when they did come up with a comprehensive plan and they did write the code, this was thought about, and it was allowed subject to planning board and obviously screening and kind of what we're going through tonight. So I just asked if we can maybe just come back, get a little bit more of a detailed landscaping plan that can show how we can successfully screen this so it will not be visible. I think that would be what we're requesting at this time. I also can concur that solar on the house for Dan's property does not work. I don't understand why solar on the house is so much more acceptable than solar on the ground, but I'm in the business, so I guess solar on the ground isn't as much of an eyesore when it's screened. But so that's just my last final comments.
Thank you.
Michael, I have a couple comments, if I may.
Yes, Melody.
I just want to make the comment that we've run into this before. The deed restrictions in a neighborhood like this that were imposed when the neighborhood was created are enforced through a neighborhood association. So while the planning board can be mindful of them and it's good to know about them, we don't get involved in the issues of, except to the point of listening. I'm not sure that I feel that we've seen enough from the neighbors' properties. I have seen all of the photographs, but that seems to be missing. And since Mike is talking about additional consultants and professionals to help, I'm wondering myself, Michael, if someone like George Janes isn't more qualified to give an opinion than a landscaper.
I just had the same thought, Melody.
Let me explain. George Janes is a visual analyst we've used before on projects. And he is very adept at looking in terms of what the visual impact of a project will have on the surrounding neighborhoods. And as I said, we've used him before very successfully. And I think the question that's before us and before the neighbors is less about the size of the trees or the types of the trees than it is whether or not, in fact, these can be screened from the views of the neighbors. And that is a specific type of work that George Janes engages in. And I would actually recommend him above just a landscaper to come up with another tree plan. So I throw that as something to think about.
Yeah, that's, if we use Mr. James, what we'd want to do, and we would ask the neighbors if they would permit him or his crew on their property so that they can actually take sightings from your properties down to the proposed site for the solar, so that he can accurately determine exactly what it would take to screen from your properties. I think that's essential. Burger Hill is a public park, operated as a public park by a nonprofit organization. So screening from Burger Hill, I believe, also would be something that we would need to look very seriously at, as well as public highways and residential neighborhood, residential properties that might be impacted by this. Hiring Mr. James as a consultant on this would be something that would be paid through the escrow of the applicant. He does this he's done it for years, cell towers, solar installations, all sorts of different visual issues, and he's been extraordinarily helpful to us in identifying what the visual impacts could be and whether or not it has been reasonable or even possible in some cases to actually effectively screen objectionable views from public highways, parks, and neighboring properties. So that is certainly one option. Given the terrain, given the location of what's being proposed, I think you're talking about a fairly significant landscaping effort to do this. And potentially one possible problem might turn out being screening necessary in such a way that it could even occlude the effectiveness of that's probably not the right word, it could impact in a negative way the effectiveness of the solar panels at different times of day, depending on the elevation of the sun, probably more so in winter than in summer, given the height of the sun in the sky. So I think there are a number of issues here that have to be looked at. If we're going to go forward, I think we need to have George Janes work with us to assess exactly what the visual impacts are and what this will take to mitigate those for the neighbors, as well as a fairly significant effort towards developing a landscaping plan. And it's not a situation in which you can plant trees that in maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years will obscure, will screen the panels. It really needs to work right off the bat. And that is going to take fairly significant plantings, care for those plantings, things of that sort. But I think Melody's suggestion of getting Mr. James involved is probably a good one. The expertise that he can provide us with, I think, might be what we need to determine exactly what would be required to screen this project effectively, if indeed it can be screened effectively from all the possible vantage points. Other members of the planning board, thoughts, comments? Okay. But that's the way I think this should go forward. I do agree with Melody. Is there anyone on the planning board who does not feel that a visual analysis from the neighboring properties to ascertain exactly what screening would be required and if it's indeed possible to effectively screen this installation? Anyone on the planning board feel we should not go down that road and get that expertise? Okay, I will take that as we should do this. What we can do is we can contact Mr. James, get a proposal from him as to what the cost would be, and convey that to the applicant to see if this is indeed something you wish to pursue. I think from the planning board standpoint, I think it's a necessity. I think the neighbors have legitimate concerns. They've all spoken up here. All of us who have lived here for a good long time, we know how open the area of the Maria Train development is from Burger Hill and from the properties that have been built on that very property. It always was open, it always was fields, it always was basically part of the old Ankeny farm. So you don't have the old tree lots, you don't have any of that as effective screening. So I think if we're going to do this, we have to do it right. Our zoning law does require screening to effectively obscure the view from neighboring properties, public roads, things like that. So I will contact Mr. James with this project and see if we can get a proposal from him as to what he would suggest doing and what the proposed cost would most likely be. And then we can convey that to the applicant and see if you still wish to go forward with putting in the ground mounted solar. And with that, any other comments from either the public or from members of the planning board or the applicant? Okay, what I'd like to do then is continue this public hearing until, and Gretchen will tell me until when.
June 21st at 7:10.
Okay, June 21st at 7:10. Could I have a motion to do so, please?
So moved, Melody.
Second?
Second, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy. Any further discussion by members of the planning board? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, very good. We'll get back to you as soon as possible with Mr. James' proposal for doing a visual analysis. And we'll also get in touch with all the neighbors who have spoken tonight so that we can include them and their properties in doing this visual analysis. So I thank you all for tonight, and we'll see you in June.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Michael, this is Jim. I just wanted to make one comment that was put in the chat box related, but not specifically to this. And that was just for the neighbors' knowledge that I was told the water tower actually belongs to the village. It's not the town's.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. The village failed to screen it.
So just want to put that out there for everyone's reference, just since it was mentioned a couple times.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So Alan knows the town's off the hook. Okay. You said that someone is here now for Rudy McIntyre?
Yes, Rudy, I believe is on the line.
Okay. If you could present what you have in mind.
Rudy, can you unmute your line?
Yeah, is it, can you hear me now?
Yes, we
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's a garage with it's basically the same footprint as what was there before. Same size.
Okay, same size, same height, same dimensions and whatnot?
The width and the length are the same, and the height is pretty much the same.
Okay. I think Delise and Joe very kindly did the site visit for this, since I screwed up. I guess
Yeah.
Joe's not here tonight. Delise, could you report on it?
Sure, no problem. So at first glance, the garage almost appears to be in, working order and pretty good condition. But as we looked more closely and also looked on the interior, it's very clear that when it was originally constructed, there was several things that weren't done properly. And so there's a good amount of water that is finding its way into the structure, and you can see it that the existing structure is also right on grade. There wasn't any sort of knee wall or protection done. And so I think that's causing more deterioration. Even the floors are sort of rotting out. So in speaking to Rudy also while being there, it sounds like, to save what's there versus starting over, they would have to take so much back to get to the infrastructure of where the problems really lie to put it back together. So the hope was to replace it, change 2 bays to 1, which would help with the interior, columns to have it more open. There's also just when you're looking at the garage door to the left side, there's like a hill. So the way the topography is, there's a lot of water that comes, down and hitting that side of the structure. So it would be engineered, differently to protect it. We also talked a little bit about the landscaping. It sounds like, right now it's just grass, and then there's like a little bit of gravel that goes around the perimeter of the structure. And that would maintain the same unless, just more grass can be a little closer versus all gravel in the immediate vicinity. So, from what I can tell between the plans and what I saw, it basically is a very, very similar thing with some adjustments, like I said, about the bays, mostly because of the hazards that are existing in the current structure.
Thank you, Delise. Is there a representative from the CAB here? I think they submitted a report, but I didn't know if they had anything wanted to add to that. Questions or comments from the planning board for the applicant? Okay, any members of the public wish to speak?
So you can just unmute your line. I'm not seeing anyone, Michael.
Okay. In that case, I think we're in a position to close the public hearing. Could I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Melody.
Second?
Second, Kathy.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Good. And I have a resolution to read. The Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board hereby acts as follows on the application by Rudy McIntyre for site plan and special use permit under Town Code Chapter 125 respectively for construction of a detached garage at 16 Valley Way within the RCH and RCO zoning districts and the Hudson River National Historic Landmark District. We reaffirm the proposed action as type 2 under seeker, for which coordinated environmental quality review is precluded. And based upon review of submitted information, including reports from planning board members, CAB, WAC members on their site visits to the property, finds that proposed work is consistent with the objectives and regulations of Chapter 125. And with respect to the application for a special use permit to authorize work, we find the proposed work and intended use to be consistent with the general standards for special use permits set forth in Town Code Chapter 125. And we grant the requested special use permit conditional upon receipt of the site plan approval by the planning board. And with respect to the application for site plan approval, we find the proposed work and intended use to be consistent with Town Code Chapter 125 and approve the application inclusive of application materials by David Mansfield Architecture and Design, PC, dated February 2nd, 2021. We authorize the planning board chair to stamp and sign the above cited site plan upon the applicant's satisfaction of the below conditions and requirements within 6 calendar months of the adoption of this resolution. Submission of the above cited site plan in the form and number specified within Town Code Chapter 125, except as may be modified to a lesser extent by the chair in consideration of filing and distribution requirements, payment of any outstanding fees and or reimbursable amounts due to the town of Rhinebeck related to the review and processing of applications subject to this resolution, and receipt of all approvals, authorizations, or certifications required herein or from any other town, county, state, or other agency as required to undertake the proposed actions. Could I hear a motion to approve, please?
So moved,
So-
Melody.
Second?
Second, Kathy.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? I will poll the board. Melody,
Aye.
Kathy,
Aye.
Delise,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
and I vote aye. So as soon as we get your final site plan ready for stamping and signing, you will be in a position to get a building permit.
Great.
And good luck.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.
Okay, our next public hearing was Catherine Whitman for a site plan review proposed single family dwelling. Unfortunately, the public hearing was not noticed, and therefore we're gonna have to reschedule the public hearing to June 21st at 6:45 p.m. Could I hear a motion to do so?
So moved, Melody.
And I think Sean, who seconded Sean?
I'll second it. Yeah.
Thank you, Sean. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Very good. Thank you. Our next public hearing is Kathy Marriott, site plan and special use permit. Anyone here from the applicant wishes to speak on tonight? We will be continuing this public hearing because we're still missing health department approval. But if the applicant or a representative is here would care to speak tonight, we certainly can listen. I guess not.
Nope, not seeing anyone, Michael.
Okay. Could I hear a motion to continue this public hearing to June 21st at 6:35 PM, please?
So moved, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
Second, Delise.
Thank you, Delise. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Okay, our next one is Hannah Barrett, special use, site plan and special use permit. We'll be continuing this one as well. Once again, due to Health Department, waiting for approvals from them. But if anyone is here who would wish to speak tonight about this application? Okay, hearing none, could I hear a motion to continue this public hearing to June 21st at 6:40 PM?
So moved, Melody.
Thank you.
Second, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Oh, our final public hearing is KPH2 Management, T Court LLC, Brindle Valley, master plan application. Anyone here wishes to speak tonight? I know we're still working on this. We believe we just all received the HAPAC review and recommendations on this, and I know they've received them as well, and I think they wanted to comment and be able to get information to us in reference to the recommendations. I know we haven't received those yet, or at least I haven't seen them. But is there anyone here from KPH2 who would like to speak tonight?
Yes, Michael, it's Howard Williams, the volunteer representing the applicant.
Okay.
We don't really have anything that we want to address ourselves, but only just to ask for a little more clarification on what the process we're going to be going forward with on this, and how the board wants to handle the remainder of the application.
Okay, at this point, I think what we're looking for is just your response, how you feel, either you've responded to the issues raised in the HAPAC report, or how you feel they perhaps, aren't necessarily something that needs to be given what you're proposing to do. So we can try to wrap up this aspect of the project and get on with the master plan approval.
Sure, I can, well, I do have to say we only received those that letter a few hours ago, so we've not had much time to take a look at this and prepare any kind of response. I can tell you from what I read, or received of it this afternoon, is that there are a lot of comments that really lack specificity, and I'm not exactly sure how to respond to them. And if if you care to bring it up, I could actually point some of those out so that I don't know if we need to get greater specificity from the advisory committee, or do we just try and attempt to respond to them based on what we can read from it.
Maybe it would be helpful if you would go over it and then send to us and through us to HAPAC where you feel you want more specificity, rather than to try and dissect it tonight, because we don't have HAPAC here. We only have one representative, so it seems fair that it go back to HAPAC if you're looking for clarity.
And I would just remind everyone, and you in particular, Howard, that I have recused myself in this situation, so I can't speak to anything with regard to it. Okay.
Understood.
Thank you.
Carrie Culhane is with us too. I don't know if she has some observations she'd like to make based on her reading of it.
Hi, Howard. Thank you. And thanks, everybody. I did only just receive this afternoon. And in terms of the cultural landscape report recommendations, they were really just comments on sort of how someone else might approach the cultural landscape report. A couple of the comments asked why I didn't address buildings that were no longer on this property. And the cultural landscape consultant that you've hired actually admonished me for focusing too much on buildings. So I think what we need to do is just respond to the letter in kind and sort of address all of the questions that have come up based on the review. And then I think we just can continue the conversation from there. But as Howard said, this is sort of new information to us.
Yeah, no, I didn't expect you to be able to, speak to this tonight. I assumed that you hadn't had a great deal of time to look it over. And we definitely want you to be able to do that. Bring up areas where you feel you need more specificity. Also, please feel free to respond to areas where you perhaps disagree, where you feel that you've already addressed certain issues that are brought up and the manner in which you've done so or proposed to do so. So that we basically can hopefully winnow down the list of any areas in which we need more information so that we can move ahead and, sort of get to an approval position consideration for this particular application.
So
That's
Michael,
agreeable
could you
to both
just,
you and Carrie.
I'm sorry, Michael, to interrupt, but could you just tell us,
No,
so
not at all.
we're going to send back comments based on our review of the HAPAC letter. But again, as Howard said, sort of what is the process? You guys will review that. Does HAPAC then come back in and have another mandatory review period? What, can you give us the timeline?
I believe the thing to do is basically, if you send your response to their comments and we will share that with them. And we'll basically just ask for more or less an expedited review. I think that we've probably, to the extent that we're going to explore different areas and different issues, we've pretty much done it. And I think we also acknowledge, or have to acknowledge, that there will be some differences of opinion. And to the extent to which those rise to the significance of really needing further review, whatnot, that's something to be decided. And I think that's hopefully the point we get to, because I think we've certainly gone over this. I know that you've put a great deal of time into this. And I think we would really like to see if we can't just move forward with this particular application, because I realize there are a lot of specific projects that are also involved that hang on this application that would then be able to move forward as well. So I think that unless any real big showstoppers show up, I would like to think that we can come to some agreement that what we have is going to work for all concerned. If there are a few things, adjustments that need to be made, then we can convey those to you and you can say, well, you think, it's rational or not, and how you might address it so that we can hopefully, put all the different questions and issues to bed.
Yeah, Michael, one thing I know that I am going to bring up as a question is how much we need to be addressing these particular concerns in this letter in the master plan phase of this application, and then how much of that is more appropriate when we get to the specific area applications.
Master plans. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm done.
Michael,
master plans are conceptual as opposed to, site specific work for actually pulling a building permit. It's overall conceptual. It's Kathy, you were about to say something.
Yeah, at the most inopportune moment, the dogs did in fact begin to bark. So I apologize for that. And Howard and Carrie, I would just say to you, having removed myself from the process, I have observed that there are very strongly held opinions, the committee, and I know they would welcome conversations with you where you feel that's necessary or appropriate or important to do. And I'm happy to try and facilitate that. I just can't participate for obvious reasons in the substance of it.
That would be really helpful if we could have direct communication. I think we could actually address these things much more effectively.
Okay, so Michael, unless there is some objection to that, I could help to facilitate that with the committee and just keep myself out of the process unless anybody objects.
I think that would be excellent, Kathy. We do that with our other consultants, engineering, things like that, to work directly with engineering consultants for applicants and things like that.
Great. All right. So Carrie and Howard and Mark, sorry to rush this, but I need to duck. I'll go to work on that tomorrow and be in touch with you.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Michael, if I could address something Howard, I think was asking, I think it's kind of two-part, Howard. I mean, for example, I know there were some comments made about when there might need to be additional archaeology. So I would agree with you that the actual details of that don't necessarily need to be in the master plan. They would be in the specific proposal. But I think the benefit of HAPAC raising it now is that going into this, that an area of concern. So I would agree that it becomes very site specific to that phase of your project, but it's also very good to get the concerns raised right up front. So they're there as you're developing the plan.
Understood.
Yeah, Howard, this is Jim. I was going to recommend just simply, where there's something that you think absolutely is related to the site plan work versus this master plan, I would just note it that you think that this should be, discussed or, looked at in more detail in the site plan element. And then if we're all in agreement, that's fine. And that's kind of our outline moving forward for what we do when, so that we can get some of these things, moved off to the actual site planning work, which I think, several of them, many of them will be. So just note it in your response memo. And if we're all in agreement, then we should be in good shape.
So any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'd like to continue this public hearing to June 21st at 7:05 PM. Could I hear a motion to do so, please?
So moved, Melody.
Second?
Please.
Thank you, Julie. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Very good. And Kathy, thank you. I think letting you guys all speak amongst yourselves, I think we'll speed the process up, get the middleman out of the way. so to
Okay,
speak.
Howard, I'll be in touch.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Kathy.
You
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Night.
Okay, we have 3 new applications. The first is James Steinberg, 214 River Road, site plan review. I believe it's for a swimming pool application.
Stephen, are you?
Hello. Yeah, I'm here. I'm just technically, incapable. Let me see. Oh, there I am. Fantastic. How are we doing today, everyone?
Not bad. Yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. It was a beautiful day, What's there to complain about?
If you can tell us what you want to do.
Okay, we're looking to put in a simple lap pool at 214 River Road in Rhinebeck. It's in the agricultural district. There was some concern of possible wetlands from the DEC mapping. We had Aspen consultants out there to inspect the site who had determined that there are no wetlands within 100 feet of our work zone. And yeah, again, very simple pool, little 12 by 59 lap pool, bluestone coping, and grass around it.
Okay. I think, Jim, you had a few comments, I believe, on your review of the application.
I've got a couple, yeah. So Steve, I took a look at the proposal and in detail, and a couple things came up. The first one is that based on the engineered plans, you couldn't see it on the sheet that you kind of provided. But when you look at the larger site plan itself, it shows the entire parcel, which I pulled up here. It actually turns out that the pool is actually located closer to the road than the house. And by code, a pool is considered a structure. And if it's located between the house and the road and it projects in front of the house, then you actually need to get a variance for that, because it is located in front of the house. It projects in a line that goes in front of the house itself. So that's one item I found, and that is, that's in the code. But it wasn't clear about, wasn't clear until I saw the full site plan. The other one is actually another one is a comment you just made that it was that this pool is surrounded by grass. That was actually one part where I was confused, because the engineered plan here says it's a proposed concrete deck.
Yeah,
plan right here.
Unfortunately, we only had 3 business days to get this plan together. So, there was a mistake on his end where that concrete that he's showing is supposed to depict our just area of disturbance, and he tacked in the wrong thing when he sent the plans through.
All right, that'll have to be cleaned up. the
Yep.
proper note then put on the plans.
Right.
What else? You are, I believe, proposing a privacy fence. And which means you can't see through it. And
Correct. Well, it's a cedar style fence, slatted. They're 1.5 inch slats. We get them over at Williams. But there's about a 1/2 inch spacing in between each horizontal slat, and they come in 4 foot and 6 foot, just to give some privacy for the clients and to not have any visual line of sight from the road while people are using the pool. We were going with the 6 foot, the 72 inch.
okay, but there is a 1/2 inch gap between the cedar boards.
Yes.
Okay, all right, then that takes care of that. You don't need a special use permit for that. If you could update the note on the plans that there is that slat in there, that would be good. That makes sure that you won't need a special use permit. I thought it was a full privacy fence, not allowing views through it. You would have required another special use permit for that.
Okay. And I can put a spec in there for that fence if you'd like to, if you want like a cross section or something.
That would be helpful.
That would be good.
Okay. Yeah.
Just actually circling back really quickly on the concrete area, the plans that you submitted, the Nijami plans and the plans by John, actually have significantly different square footages of disturbance shown. You had shown 2,500 square feet. He had 13,700 square feet of disturbance. So again, when you're going back and cleaning up the plans, just need to clarify what those numbers are or make sure that they're consistent, because they are vastly different in terms of the proposed area to be disturbed.
Right. Understood.
So that's again a cleanup issue. A couple more. Sorry, just gonna kind of rattle through them and then I'll open up to planning board members. I don't know if you're planning to remove any trees or not in order to put the pool in and get the fenced area in, but if there are any trees of larger caliper, I'd have to look in the code. I think it's 4 or 6 inches or more. You should identify those on the plan to let us know, that those trees are coming down if there are any. I wasn't sure based on the plans because it actually looked like your plan proposed to keep a tree, but the other plan showed the concrete deck. So it was confusing whether or not that tree was going to stay or not, because obviously you're not going to have a tree in a concrete deck. So,
Right. Yeah, the concrete deck thing was confusing. I apologize for that, but yeah, there's no concrete deck.
So there are a couple trees shown within the fenced area. Are they going to remain?
I have no intention to take any trees down personally, and I would have to consult with the client. If there is so, we will get them noted.
Okay, it was mainly this one over here in the right corner that I'm circling that I saw. It looks like a decent sized tree within the fenced area.
Okay. All right. Yeah, there's a couple of oaks over there.
Okay.
If anything was to be removed, it wouldn't be down in that area. It would be more towards the center of the pool, depending on where the root systems lie in the drip edge. If anything is going to be, damaged during the installation of the swimming pool, we'd want to take that down and not run the risk of the tree, in 5-10 years falling on the house.
Right. So yeah, if you're going to remove any larger trees, just note those for us, please. 2 other quick things. On Joe's plan, it looks like he actually has 2 different setback lines shown between the house and the property line over here, where it's a 75-yard setback. But then he has the whole building envelope, which is also labeled as a setback line. So that should just be clarified. I think, what the actual setback is, and then what the setback is that's permitted for the pool, because the pool can obviously go within the overall setback, because you can reduce that distance down.
Right. Yeah. The survey we were approved to use, or the survey site plan that the client had in his possession that we were approved to use, had some old some markings on it that showed the old setbacks. So yeah, we'll define that.
Yep, and you'll get all these notes from me, so you'll have these all in writing.
Great.
Two other quick ones. The first one, your silt fencing appeared to just be around the excavation work for the pool. I guess now, since it is going to be grass, that would be okay. I had originally thought the silt fencing should be moved around the entire area with the fence, but since you're not doing a concrete, you're not going to disturb any of that, I guess the silt fencing is probably okay as is.
Okay.
And then just one question. The mechanicals are like approximately 60 feet from the pool outside the fenced area, and I was just curious why that was chosen as the location. It seems pretty far away, like a pretty far run. I was just curious what the thinking was behind that.
The thinking behind it was I was in another, we were in the zoning meeting for another project, and it came up for the zoning board that the filter equipment, although removable, they consider it they consider it part of the pool project. So they want to see the same setback for the equipment as they do for the pool. So in order to kind of get things where they need to be and not have it, on the side of the house, outside the client's bedroom window, we snuck it around the back. And there's also better access and less excavation needs to happen for the electrical feed and propane supply when it's placed in the back.
Okay. Thank you. My only other comment, when you do provide resubmitted plans, is this original sheet with Warren Temple Smith's name, I think should be removed.
Okay.
We shouldn't, if you're going to use the sheet that was done by him, you need to get his permission to kind of draw on it again and resubmit it. It was done by him, and it's not appropriate to be drawing on other people's plan sheets unless you had permission from Warren to do so. But if not,
Right. Again, this was the approved survey / plan that we are allowed to use. And typically when we submit anything to the town, we would be marking up on the survey to give a better depiction of where the pool actually is. Now that we have engineering involved, I understand this can get pulled out and we can just go off of a stamped engineer's plan.
yeah, and submitting this sheet as it was would be fine, but marking it up is actually, it's a bit of a problem. Just wanted to mention that just for future reference.
Okay.
We're letting all applicants know that. So
Okay,
Michael, with
thank you.
that, I think I've covered all of my items, and I think that's enough for me for now.
Thank you, Jim. Other questions or comments from members of the planning board? Okay, well, I have a procedural resolution then. The Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board hereby acts as follows in the application by James Steinberg for site plan approval under Town Code Chapter 125 to install a swimming pool at 214 River Road within the RA10 zoning district and the LWRA along a scenic road in the Hudson River National Historic Landmark District. We accept the application of supporting documents as adequate for further review by the planning board, its advisors, and the public. Classify the proposed action as type 2 under seeker, for which coordinated environmental quality review is precluded. And we schedule a public hearing on the application for June 21st at 6:50 and direct the clerk to undertake or otherwise cause noticing and posting thereof. We delegate planning board members Delise Berry and Sean Jones to conduct a site visit. It's here in ink. To the project site and report their observations at the time of public hearing. Is that okay with you two?
Yes.
That's my typo. Sorry about that. It should have been-
Sean and
Thanks,
Delise are good with it.
Thanks,
I
Jim.
don't have to try and read my writing, so that's
You're
good.
good.
It's,
We'll just start doing that in the
there.
future. We'll just assign them ahead of time.
Just
In accordance with
publicly, yeah, thank you.
you both for volunteering.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Sorry about that.
In accordance with Town Code Chapter 9, we refer the application to the Conservation Advisory Board for review and written comment concerning environmental factors. And in accordance with Town Code Chapter 118, we refer the application to the Waterfront Advisory Committee for review and written comment concerning consistency with the LWRP. And in accordance with Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development 3239 zoning planning review, we refer it to the application to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development for review. And we authorize, without prejudice to any information or comment as may be presented at the public hearing or may arise based on both outside field visits and referral, preparation of a working draft of an approvals resolution for the planning board's consideration on June 21st, or as may be later timely. Could I hear a motion to approve, please?
So move, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. Second?
Second, Delise.
Thank you, Delise. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Okay, we'll see you on the 21st.
Thank you very much.
Okay, don't go away.
I'm not going anywhere.
All right. Our next new application is Michael Shapiro, 57 Upper Hook Road, site plan review for the installation of a swimming pool.
Yes.
It's all yours.
Okay. Swimming pool. We have already met with the zoning board. Have a couple notes from them, and basically, I think we're good with them. Actually, they had a site visit on Saturday. We're going to be seeing them again on Wednesday. But there's swimming pool being installed on a hillside. We are encroaching into the setbacks. We did do that intentionally because we wanted to try to keep the natural look of the property and the road, the community or the neighborhood. Where we're building the pool is on a unusable slope as far as entertaining, playing, or what have you, bocce, if you will. But it's really kind of almost a rockish outcrop hillside. It has a very, very thin line of sight from the neighboring properties. And again, we wanted to put it somewhere that was kind of out of sight, out of mind, and not disturb the rest of the property. That being said, the parts of the project that may be able to be seen by the road or in line of sight from the road, the way we have the pool, if you can get to Wagner Hodgkin's drawings, I think it's the next one. It gives us a 3D kind of draw. If you can go to the next drawing. Nope. And I think Eli's in here. Eli, if you could specify which
the last drawing.
The last drawing. There we go. So basically, this is almost like the angle coming from Upper Hook Road. We have the pool out of the ground roughly 4 feet plus 3 inches or so, and the whole side of the pool is going to be exposed and veneered. So it looks like a natural rock wall almost. That would minimize any pool type of fencing within the line of sight from the road, and kind of give it its own. It doesn't look like it's imposing on the property. You can see that there's already a few gardens. There's kind of like an English garden that sits closer to the road, and then they have their vegetable garden that's within the fence, the white fence that you see there. That's why we wanted to stick the pool up into the hillside, because if we were to do anything down in the lower area, it would really just clutter it all and kind of destroy the natural look. The fencing we're using is the same that we were discussing in the previous proposal, and that's going to be the horizontal cedar slatted fencing with the 1/2-inch gaps in between the slats. And what else? The stone we're using for veneer is going to mimic or look like the natural bluestone on site and the field stone. We are going to purchase it, but it's intended to look the same, and it is going to be natural stone. Again, very small pool. This is a 10 by 40 lap pool. By no means is it a party pool in the neighborhood. It's meant for the clients to be able to let the grandchildren go swimming when they come up on the weekends, and to be able to do laps for exercise.
So Stephen, you're not salvaging any rocks or stones from the property for the wall?
We stayed away from that. No, we're not going to be collecting anything. There was talk of this reclaimed granite, to use that as part of the patio. That was taken out just because it was too many mixes. We're doing bluestone, we're trying to keep a certain vibe with the cedar, and just throwing the granite in the mix wasn't doing it. But a little bit of the change in the design, which I think is depicted on it's depicted in the new set of drawings, that the granite slabs have been removed.
Okay.
Other comments or questions?
Michael, this is Jim. I have a couple, less than last time, Stephen. So
bring it, Jim. Bring it.
I've been with the planning board 2.5 years. I've only seen one other proposal for this, but it hasn't actually come before us for official discussion yet. The applicant is proposing to put in 6 moonlights, and these are lights that are actually strapped to the tree. We haven't discussed these before, and there isn't anything specific in the code that I can see regarding that, but lighting is limited to 15 feet in height. I just didn't know if the planning board wanted to discuss this. It appears to be down lighting. It's like down lighting spotlights, if I was looking at it correctly. So we don't have any night sky issues. I guess there could potentially be glare. But I do believe that the lights in the trees, and they were down lighting, right, Stephen? They weren't.
Yeah.
It wasn't up.
This is Eli. I'm the landscape architect on the project, and I helped pick the lighting here. So yes, the moonlights are in the trees. The idea is that they would be pointed down to create a shadow effect with the branches onto the hardscape and surrounding landscape. There would be no glare once focused that would be visible from outside the trees. In regards to 15 feet max height, I think that's totally feasible with the tree selections that we have. We're actually putting them in an existing crabapple that is remaining. And that tree itself, which is already at full size, is about 20 feet tall. So we can guarantee that the same trees that we'll be putting in won't be maxing out any higher than that. And when we focus the lights, we'll ensure that they're 15 feet or less from height.
Okay, thank you. So Stephen, again with the fencing, this one, it did appear that you did provide a cut sheet of it. It did appear there were gaps in the fence. Is that the case, that it's a slatted fence again, but it has the gaps in between the boards?
Yep.
Okay.
Same style. We buy it from Williams in Rhinebeck.
All right, so no SUP needed there.
And there's actually there is a photo in this package of one of my other projects. It's a finished pool that was in the package. I think it's 1 or 2 back. That has the fence. That the pool in that project right there. It's hard to see on the little screen that everybody has, but in your package in your drawings, the fence in the backdrop there is the slatted cedar fence that we intend to use.
Okay, well that's good. You don't need another special use permit. The only item I found, which may be a bigger item, is it appears you're proposing to put a 4-foot fence on top of a 4-foot high wall for this pool, which would in effect give you an 8-foot high wall / fence. And the town code only allows fencing or walls to be 6 feet in height, which means if you wanted to do this as proposed, you'd have to go to the ZBA and get another variance for 2 feet in fence height, if I'm reading your plans correctly.
Right. We were already with the ZBA, and we're meeting with them again on Wednesday, but that none of that was brought up with any of this.
Right, it wasn't caught earlier, but it, again, when I do a detailed review, sometimes these things come out. I'm trying to find the sheet, but I believe what you're proposing.
Okay, you're the guy to blame. I understand. Rightfully so.
That is my job.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess that's going to be a question. Maybe get the building department involved, because I've got no issues making the fence smaller as long as building department is comfortable with the transition, for the barrier. So, because we're using that pool wall, that 4-foot pool wall as part of the barrier. Now, if we have, say 2 foot of cedar panel on top of it, which tapers up to the 4 to be able to somehow meet the code, and it doesn't, affect that, it'd be tough.
Yeah,
talk that through, because the building department can't give you a waiver on that if it doesn't meet the zoning law.
That's what I'm saying. If you need that fencing to meet the state code, then you're gonna need to apply for another variance for the fence height,
right,
to make that happen. Because
just
like
put
I
it
said,
on my
the code,
tab. Yep.
Code requires 6 feet maximum, whether it's a wall, a fence, or a combination thereof. And until we had the detail looked at them in detail.
Okay, I think we can scale that back, especially and come to a happy medium on that whole thing, because I don't know that the fence really needs to return into the side that it does. I mean, I also don't know if there's any way around not having 8 foot at least 2 feet of area. I think we'd be stuck with that at some point. But we'll see what we can do with it, and we'll talk to zoning. And we're seeing zoning in 2 days, so we will have a resolution.
Yep. So Michael, that's it for me.
Thank you, Jim. Other comments or questions from the planning board? Okay, I have a resolution. The Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board hereby acts as follows on the application by Michael Shapiro for site plan under Town Code Chapter 125 for installation of a pool at 57 Upper Hook Road within the RA10 Rural Agriculture Zoning District, the local waterfront revitalization area, and within the Hudson River National Historic Landmark District. We accept the application and supporting documents as adequate for further review by the planning board, its advisors, and the public. We classify the proposed action as type 2 under seeker, for which coordinated environmental quality review is precluded, and we schedule a public hearing on the application for June 21st at 6:55 p.m. and direct the clerk to undertake or otherwise cause the noticing and posting thereof. Delegates, planning board members, I don't think we can ask Elise and Sean to do this one, so who would like to do this one?
Sorry for the same typo again, my mistake.
All good.
Well, I'll do it. Who else would like to do it with me?
I'll go with you, Michael.
Melody? Okay. Melody and I will do the site visit and report back at the public hearing. In accordance with Town Code Chapter 9, we refer the application to the Conservation Advisory Board for review and written comment concerning environmental factors. And in accordance with Town Code Chapter 118, we refer the application to the Waterfront Advisory Committee for review and written comment concerning consistency with the LWRP. And in accordance with Dutchess County Department of Planning 1239 Planning Zoning Referral, refer it to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development for review and authorize without prejudice to any information or comment that may be presented at the public hearing or may arise based on both the above cited site visits and referrals, preparation of a working draft of the approvals resolution for the planning board's consideration on June 21st, or as may be later timely. Could I hear a motion to approve, please?
So moved, Melody.
Thank you, Melody. Second?
Second, Elise.
Thank you, Delise. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Okay, we'll see you on, well, we'll see you anyway on June 21st.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great
Take
night.
care.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one more new application. This is kind of special. It's a application we approved a little more, well, I guess a year ago, something like that, but time ran out. It's for site plan special use permit and a wetland permit for Cutler Dvorkin on Cedar Heights Road. I discussed this with Jim and with Melody, and we feel that rather than go, nothing has changed. It's basically just we should have those permits reissued. There's been no change, nothing else. So rather than go through the process of a public hearing, review and all that, if you guys are all comfortable with it, we would like to suggest that what we do basically is just have an approval resolution, just reapproving what we approved before and starting the clock again when they have to get final stamping and signing and building permits. Does anyone have a problem with that? Mark, you or Seth? have anything you want to say?
I don't, Michael. What's the realization of us having to redo this?
I guess, Mark, they're redoing this because what?
Oh, they're selling the property. It's for sale, and so the buyers wanted to have an approved site plan for construction of the residence and the improvements associated with it. Driveway, obviously septic is good for 5 years. The original approval was in 2019, and so it's just to complete the sale of the property.
So basically, Mark, the current owners got the approval and chose not to go ahead with what was approved.
That's correct.
Okay. And now it's for sale and the new owners want to be agency.
That's correct.
Okay.
Is everyone comfortable with doing it this way?
Is this,
Anyone
Mark, I'm trying to
not-
remember, this is the one where the driveway got moved around a few times and.
It did, Melody, because so access basically remained the same location on Cedar Heights.
Right.
Originally, it was closer to the adjacent area of a core wetland.
Right.
On the I guess it would have been the north side, east side of the property, and so we pulled it away. I had staked it out in the field. I actually met Edna. We relocated it.
Yep.
And yeah, so it was, and then moved it once again, trying to optimize location of driveway to keep, because a portion of the land is farmed for hay. And
Right.
keep as much ag space available as possible in the driveway location.
It's all coming back to me now.
Yeah, what I would add for the newer members of the planning board is, I recall this going on for several meetings in order to resolve a number of questions that were raised. And so I think I can attest to the fact that I think this was very thoroughly reviewed. And any questions that came up, we worked closely with the applicants to resolve them.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Mhm.
So if the permits get reinstated and then it's a new buyer and they have some adjustments that they wanted to make to the plan, what happens then? Because it's just
Back to the board. They would have to come back to us.
They have to go
do the
back.
site
So
plan.
we're reinstating the previous owner's plans so that they have a head start.
Correct.
If they make any changes, we
Yes.
have to approve it all again.
Yes, well, we have to approve whatever amendments they choose to make, yes.
Correct. I also note that the property is under easement with Winnicke Land Trust. And so
That's right.
Winnicke has a specific development envelope associated with the parcel. It's limited. I don't have the plan in front of me now as far as acreage. I'm trying to remember. Jim, do you take a look at the plan?
Well, I do remember, but Mark, the point, I think, Mark, you're like Seth.
Yeah,
the
I know.
point, the point I would make
I'm
about
incognito
that,
tonight.
the point I would make about that is if the buyers wish to change the original approval, they would also have to go back through Winnicke if that involved the changing of any easements.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess what I was trying to say, it's a very limited envelope that Winnicke's, if it's I think it's a 2 or 3 acre envelope for that entire property that Winnicke established for building development. So it's pretty limited area, and so the buyer is well aware of that.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to, and there was, and so just as part of this previous application, there was some negotiation with Winnicke to, I think that, they slid the easement area to the north like 30 or 40 feet or something like that. There, Winnicke has had flexibility on the, the specific location, but the size still remained the same. It's a small building envelope.
Correct.
Right. And essentially the reason we're talking about, moving this forward tonight is it's really just trying to reset the clock. Absolutely nothing's changed. It's the same plan. It's the same approval. It's the same letter from Winnicke stating that they're okay with it. It really just resets the clock, and it's a date change on the paper. Absolutely nothing else is changing. And it's not an old plan. It was relatively recent. It wasn't controversial. I think all the questions really came from planning board members. I don't think we had much, if anything, in the way of public comment at that one. So there, again, I think really it's just a matter of the time clock running out. And that was the reason for moving this forward the way that we're proposing today.
I'm okay with it.
Okay, thank you, Delise. Okay, well, I have a very short resolution this time. Excuse me. The Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board hereby reapproves the previously approved application by Charles Cutler and Kate Dvorkin for site plan special use permit under Town Code Chapter 12572, 12567 respectively, and for a wetland permit under Town Code Chapter 120, Section 124 for construction of a single-family residence with major excavation at Cedar Heights Road within the rural countryside RC5 zoning district. Per Town Code Chapter 12577F, the planning board hereby waives the requirements to undergo a formal site plan review process. As this project has already been approved by the town planning board, no changes are proposed to the original submission, and this action is strictly a reapproval to reset the clock for undertaking the project as the prior approval expired per section 125-78D. No later than 2 weeks prior to 6 months beyond the date of adoption of this resolution, and upon specific written request by the applicant, a time extension may be made per section 125-78D2. Could I hear a motion to approve, please?
So moved, Melody.
Second?
Second, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy. I'll poll the board. Melody?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
Delise?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay, Mark.
Thank you very
If
much.
you get me the thing to stamp and sign, I will stamp and sign.
Okay, I'll drop plans off tomorrow, Michael. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep. Good night, everyone.
Take care.
Aye.
Okay. What I have left on the agenda are 2 ZBA referrals for variance requests. The first one is Catherine Whitman, 16 Old Post Road. And I think we've gone over these. She's putting the new house in, so I believe the situation was pretty much.
Didn't we
just within the
defer
setbacks.
this already?
No, we deferred her application to the planning board, but these are the requests to the zoning board of appeal for variances because of the setbacks that can't be met. It's a very small lot in the 10-acre zoning district, and therefore the front, rear, and side setbacks can't be met. So I will read what we have here and see what you think. Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board, upon referral by the zoning administrator of an application by Catherine Whitman for setback variances for the construction of a single-family home at 16 Old Post Road in the RA 10 zoning district, we find that the requested variances raise no significant planning or environmental concerns and recommend that the ZBA rely upon its own study of the facts in deciding the application in accordance with the criteria and procedures set forth in Town Code Chapter 125, Section 12576, including consideration of the input of neighboring property owners. This is, if she hopefully noticed that, or she won't be doing that on 2 days. Anyway, does anyone have any questions about this? I think we've discussed it when they tore the old house down, excuse me, so there was no grandfathering left in terms of setbacks, which there had been when they were simply going to rebuild part of it and go up a little higher. And they didn't require the variances, but once they tore it down and cleared the site of every little piece that was there, including the foundation, there was nothing left there as a landmark to function as a grandfather. So that's what the setbacks are. Does anyone have any questions about this?
No.
Could I hear a motion to approve?
I so move. Melody.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Right.
I
Very good. Okay, we have one more, and that is Michael Shapiro. We just discussed. Hold on. I do have, yes, I do. We pretty much, I think, just discussed with Jim what the variances are that are required here. Any further questions about these? Because that's what I believe they're referring to here. Although I think the one that Jim brought up, if they do wish to go with the 4-foot fence on top of the 4-foot stone fence, that would be an additional variance they'd be asking for, which is not a topic of this particular variance request.
No, that'll have to be looked at separately, and I think Michelle will probably have to weigh in on that just to confirm. But
Okay.
yeah, that will come later.
So what variants are they going for?
These are for the rear yard setback and the side yard, as it was explained before. In terms
Okay.
of the placement.
Well, if we're just now referring them to the zoning board of appeals, we've scheduled them for June 21st. They won't be through the zoning board of appeals process by then, will they?
No, probably not.
Probably not.
And we'll just have to either continue the public hearing, which is what we probably will have to do. Basically, the whole idea here is through our track system is just to try to keep things in a certain logical order so that we don't have everything bunching up at once, which.
Yeah,
doesn't
no,
always seem
no,
to
I
work
get
so
it.
good.
I get it. I just, sometimes it's like, if we could not even put them on the agenda until we know they can get through the zoning board of appeals, but,
But what we've always done in the past is allowed people to run concurrently with the ZBA and the planning board.
yeah, no, but we can't approve until they hear back.
No, and we never could. We
No.
never could. But this way they at least wouldn't have to do one and then start fresh with the other. It'd save them at least a month, maybe more.
Can I just say,
Here's what
I
I
agree
have.
with Melody. This feels not productive the way it is organized, but I've said that before, so I won't repeat.
For the record.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, I have for Mr. Shapiro, Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board, upon referral by the zoning administrator of an application by Michael Shapiro for setback variances for installation of a pool at 57 Upper Hook Road in the RA 10 zoning district, finds that the requested variances raise no significant planning or environmental concerns, and recommends that the ZBA rely upon its own study of the facts in deciding the application in accordance with the criteria and procedures set forth in Town Code Chapter 125, Section 12576, including consideration of the input of neighboring property owners. Could I hear a motion to approve?
So moved, Melody.
Second?
Second, Kevin.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And I just found two more things. HAPAC referrals. One is Southlands Foundation. What is it that Southlands Foundation wants?
We did these.
We did these.
We did these.
We did Eric Fixler and Southlands?
Well, we did Fixler. Southlands, Kathy, you said you already had it, but we didn't actually do a motion on it.
It was already referred to us.
Okay. I'm all for that. Oh, good.
Not that I'm thrilled about it, but it was.
Well, I'll take that as it's done.
Those are done.
Okay. Our agenda is complete. Does anyone have any questions or comments they'd like to make?
Oh, sir.
Okay, I guess we're ready to go.
Seems to.
So Michael,
guess I'll
just to confirm you, just to remind you, it is George Janes, not
Yes,
James.
James.
Janes.
Yes.
Okay, and you'll convey that information to Mr. Mealy?
Once we get it from George, yes.
Okay.
I want to thank you all. I'm glad we're getting done at 8:25 and not 10:30 or 10:45 this time. So I can get a good night's sleep. Hope you all take care. Enjoy this beautiful weather ahead. And we'll see you all in a couple of weeks.